Hello and welcome back to the homestead. My name is Jack if you're new to the channel. Every year, right around this time of year, we start getting emails and messages on our Facebook, and people are looking to offload roosters. It's about the time of year where if you bought chickens in the spring and you bought either straight run or even a run of pullets, you start being able to tell pretty obvious who the roosters are and who the hens are. Since we're a farm that has chickens, people often call us or message us and say, hey, will you take my roosters? And we do sometimes, but not often. The goal of today's video is going to be to outline a few different options for you if you've got roosters on your small farm or homestead that you don't want, to give you a few ideas of what you can do with those roosters. But first, I've got a 5-gallon bucket full of hard-boiled eggs here that we're going to feed the pigs. We've been getting a ton of eggs lately from our chickens. You can feed them to pigs raw. It's a great protein source. But if you hard boil them, that protein is twice as accessible by their digestive system. So at night, sometimes we'll hard boil 4 or 5 dozen eggs, and then the next morning, once they've cooled off, we'll bring them out to the pigs. Whew. It's humid. It's hot and it's humid. I'm gonna ditch this hat. How do I look? Not too bad. All right, let's talk chickens. Even you guys know to hang out over here under the tree where it's cool, huh? If you're a new chicken owner, you may have learned over the last couple of months that the sexing techniques at various hatcheries that they use to tell you whether you have a male or female chicken when you buy it as a little chick, you may have learned they're not 100%. I've found personally over the years that if you order a sexed run, meaning you want females only, you're typically going to get about 90% females and 10% males in those runs. If you order a straight run of chickens from a hatchery, you're probably going to end up more with 70% males and 30% females. And that number comes from the fact that if somebody's ordering a run of female chickens and they're going through and sorting out all those females, and then they have these males, those males are going somewhere. Now, I may be wrong on that. If you work for a hatchery and you know how this whole process works, let me know and reach out and tell me that I'm wrong. But as far as I can tell, anytime I've gotten a straight run of chicks, it has been more males than females by 20%-ish. And if you're a new chicken owner and you find yourself with a rooster in a situation where you didn't necessarily want a rooster, it can be kind of stressful for you because you now have this animal that you have heard stories about, that they can be aggressive, that they're loud, that they can hurt your hens.
Stop. Hey! Don't. Ouch!
So I'm here to give you a few pointers today on, maybe some thoughts to consider first about keeping that rooster and hanging on to them, because they do have some benefits in your flock. But if you're dead set on getting rid of that rooster, or you live in an area where you're not allowed to have roosters, I do have a few pointers on your next steps that you can take to kind of make the transition from having a rooster to not having a rooster a little bit easier. First, let me run down some quick reasons why you might want a rooster. If you have a rooster within a flock of hens, that rooster will tend to be a little bit of a mediator in the pecking order of things. If you're new to chickens, you might not have witnessed it yet, but chickens will establish a pecking order, which is essentially a hierarchy of top down, king or queen of the coop, and then you'll have a layering system underneath that. And the chickens on the bottom tend to get picked on by the chickens that are up on the top. If you have a hen in your flock that's getting picked on a lot by some of the hens that are higher up on the pecking order, that rooster will actually step in from time to time when they're getting picked on and push those hens off of her. And that can be a great asset if you have a small flock where, a couple hens are getting picked on more than other ones. having that rooster in there as the mediator and kind of the bouncer of the group, if you will, he really will make sure that no hen is getting picked on more than another one. It can be a bolster to the health of your flock. Another reason you might want a rooster in your flock is that roosters can act as protectors of the ladies. Now, I'm not necessarily saying a rooster is going to go toe-to-toe with a coyote or a bobcat or something like that, but what I mean is that the rooster typically, he'll keep his eye on the sky. He'll be looking up. If there's a hawk or a bird that flies overhead that worries him, the rooster will sound an alarm, and he'll typically let the rest of the birds know, hey, something's going on, you know, get under the coop, get into the coop, get into the run. And we've noticed multiple times when we're hanging out in the backyard that we'll hear Murph, who's our rooster, make a noise of alarm to let all the ladies know something's going on. And then we look up and we see a crow or a hawk or a vulture really high overhead. Luckily for us, we don't have too many aerial predators. However, having Murph around to sound that alarm is kind of nice. We know that he's going to be on the lookout while the other birds are eating. They've got their heads down, they're pecking, they're scratching. He's kind of looking around, keeping an eye out for things that aren't right. So if you have a rooster in your flock and it's permitted where you live, I'd encourage you to think about possibly keeping that rooster around. At the very least, see how he develops. You've got about a year before your rooster's personality fully kind of comes out and shows itself to you. When they're young, they tend to be pretty timid. They tend to kind of not take on that role of the positive role of a rooster in the flock. But after about a year, that's when they really start to kind of come into their own and develop the qualities that make a rooster, whether they're good or bad. And this is where I put a huge disclaimer in the video. A rooster is not always going to be a good rooster. Sometimes roosters can be mean and vicious and rude toward the other ladies in the flock, but they can also be extremely good and beneficial to the flock. And that's why we have Murph, our rooster, here. Of all the roosters we've had over the years, he is the best. You sweet rooster? You're a sweet rooster. You're a sweet rooster. And I don't see getting rid of him necessarily anytime soon because of his positive qualities. He is looking at me like I am going to peck you. But if you've given your rooster a chance and he turns out to not be a good addition to the flock, there are some ways that you can remove the rooster from your flock and live life rooster free. The first of those ways, and the easiest for a new chicken owner, is probably going to be to either give away or sell your rooster. Giving away a rooster and selling a rooster are two very different things, and what you're going to do is going to be dependent on the type of rooster that you have. And I don't mean type of rooster in personality, but I mean type of rooster in breed. Roosters, admittedly, are a dime a dozen. You can get them everywhere. And if you have a breed that's very common, say an Orpington or a Barred Rock or an Easter Egger or even just a barnyard mix that you got from somebody that sold you a bunch of chicks that they hatched, you're not going to be able to sell that rooster most likely. It's just so common for people to have roosters that they don't want or can't have that really that rooster is going to carry very little value. You could put it up for sale, but 9 times out of 10, there's a free rooster that's going to be right next to it where people are looking. So I would encourage you that unless it's a rare breed or it's an older rooster who's established and has a really good personality, I would just give the rooster away. If it is a rare breed, if it's a breeding quality rooster, if it's, you know, something that has been raised from like a 4-H club or something like that, then you can set a price accordingly and go from there. But otherwise, 9 times out of 10, just give the rooster away. Craigslist is going to be one of your best places to do this. Facebook has taken a stance where they don't allow animal sales on Facebook anymore, and your account can get banned for doing that. Whether you agree with it or not, it's just not really a great place to sell an animal these days. So 9 times out of 10, Craigslist, or if you have a local farming message board or something like that, that's another great way to get rid of it. Another option for you, if you don't want to go the selling route, is to find a rooster sanctuary in your area if you have one. They're not that common. They're kind of few and far between, but they are popping up more. We do have one here in New Hampshire. And at that rooster sanctuary, there is a person who takes roosters in for free. There are various animal sanctuaries out there as well, run by people that don't want to see farm animals tossed into the food cycle. That is a big issue for some people, obviously not us. But if one of those exists in your area, it can be a good place to offload a rooster that you don't necessarily want or can't have. The next option is a little bit more involved and possibly a little bit more, it might carry a little bit more shock value than simply giving a rooster away or selling it. And that option is to turn that rooster into food. Now, there are breeds of chicken that are raised specifically for the table. There are Cornish crosses, there are Freedom Rangers, there are color yields. There are all these breeds that you can purchase from hatcheries that are made specifically to turn into a form of food for yourself and your family. However, all chickens are edible. There's nothing out there that says you can't eat a Barred Rock or an Orpington or an Americana or a Leghorn, even as stringy and thin as those birds are. They're totally edible and they can be eaten. So if you have a rooster, regardless of the breed, you can raise that rooster up until it gets to the point where it's becoming a nuisance and you don't want it for various reasons. And then you can cull that rooster from your flock and you can eat that rooster. Typically, your non-meat breeds are going to fare a little bit better as what are called soup birds or stew birds. They're not going to have as much meat on them, so you're not going to get like the big fat chicken breast or the leg and thigh that you're used to on a chicken from the store. But those birds are perfectly acceptable to cook, pull the meat, and then use the carcass to make broth, and then you can use the meat to make soup or chicken salad or whatever you want out of them. There are multitudes of videos online where you can see how to do this. You can take a look. We have one ourselves, which I'll link up in the corner here, where we kind of go over the basics. But if you really think it's something you can't do, there are other avenues out there to also still turn that bird into food for your family. One of the things that we do every year on our farm is we will run a poultry processing workshop where people will come out and they can learn how to process chickens from start to finish, and we let them go home with a bird that they've processed themselves. One thing that we're going to do this year that we haven't done in years past is we're going to allow a new chicken owner who has acquired an unwanted rooster to bring that rooster with them to our farm, and they can process that rooster, or we can help them process that rooster, and they can actually take that rooster that they've raised because they've put money into it, they've fed it, they've taken care of it, and they can bring that rooster processed back to their farm or homestead or even just house and feed their family with that chicken that they've raised up. There are so many people out there that started raising chickens and poultry in the last year that we can't help everybody in taking roosters off their hands, and we don't have infinite space on our farm to just have 100 roosters running around. But I still want those roosters to be used and to not go to waste by just essentially getting killed and thrown away or released out into the wild. And that takes me kind of to the last part of this video that I wanted to... Hello. I don't know what happened over there. It brings me to the last part of the video, which I wanted to kind of just cover lightly. I didn't want to get too far into it. But there are things not to do. And one of those things is don't just kill the rooster and throw it away. Don't shoot the rooster with a BB gun. Don't shoot it with a shotgun. Don't waste that rooster. There are ways out there for you to make that rooster useful. The other thing I gotta say is don't release that rooster. There was a local incident here at a boat launch, and it appeared that somebody had some broad-breasted white turkeys that they didn't want anymore, and they just took them to a local piece of state land with a boat launch on it, and they released those turkeys, just let them go. And it caused a little bit of a stir. People were posting on the local Facebook group, hey, did anybody lose their turkeys? Jackie and I were both out at the time, and the boat launch is not far from us. It's only about a quarter mile, and it prompted her to actually come home and check on our turkeys to make sure nobody had gotten away. These birds are domesticated. They're not designed, they're not bred, they're not fit to live a life that is outside the confines of you taking care of them. So no matter how tempting it is, no matter how much it would seem that animal is going to be able to live a life of its own if you release it into the woods, just know that that's going to end in that animal either starving to death or being attacked and killed or being hit by a car. It's not going to end well for that animal. So hopefully if you have a rooster that you can't have or you don't want for some reason, you don't take that route is really all I can say. If this video was helpful to you, we'd really appreciate you hitting the thumbs up down below and subscribing to the channel. We do all sorts of cool stuff here on our small farm and homestead, whether it's chickens, we raise pigs, we have a pretty decent garden. I'm not the greatest gardener, but we have an okay garden that we like to talk about from time to time. But we'd love to have you as part of the channel and part of the community that's growing every single day. Thanks for watching, and as I always say, have a great day. Bye.